My name's Marcus. I'm 33, work in IT consulting, and have somehow become the designated adult in my family, not by choice, but by default. You know the type. Every family has one. The person who gets the emergency calls when rent's late, when the car won't start, when someone forgot to apply for health insurance again. That's me. It wasn't always like this. Growing up, we didn't have much, so I used to promise myself that when I made it, my family would never have to feel that kind of instability again. And for a while, that promise felt good, like I was giving back. A couple hundred here, a couple thousand there, no big deal. But over the years, it stopped feeling like generosity. It started feeling like obligation. Like I was the only one showing up with my sleeves rolled up while everyone else arrived late and left early if they showed up at all. Still, I didn't complain. That wasn't my style. I've always been more of the let's fix it and talk later type. But lately I've been wondering if later ever actually comes for people like me. Because I've been holding the weight for so long, I'm not even sure they realize what I carry. It all came to a head the week of my birthday. Now, before I get into what happened, let me just say, I'm not the kind of person who makes a big deal about my birthday. I don't expect parades or speeches. I'm not 22 anymore, but I figured after everything I've done for them over the years, organising a simple dinner with the people closest to me wasn't too much to ask. Something small, warm, intimate. So I planned it. I booked a private room at this nice bistro downtown, nothing flashy, just classy. Quiet lighting, decent wine list, great food, a place where you could hear yourself talk without shouting over someone else's birthday playlist. I paid a $400 deposit up front to reserve the space, non-refundable, but whatever. I sent out calendar invites a full 3 weeks in advance, texted everyone, followed up the week before, reminded them again 2 days prior. Mum responded with a thumbs up emoji. Dad just liked the message. My sister Kendra replied, "Sounds good." Her husband Tom hearted the invite like it was an Instagram post. My younger brother Jordan didn't reply at all, but that wasn't unusual. He has the emotional availability of a folding chair. Even my cousin Rachel and her boyfriend Zach were on the list. Not because we're particularly close, but they show up to everything, eat like they've never seen food before, and somehow never bring anything to the potlucks. You know the type. I figured it'd be a nice night, a little thank you to myself with the people I love most. I even picked a spot close to everyone's side of town, so there'd be no excuse about traffic or gas or babysitters. I was optimistic, naive maybe, but optimistic. The evening came. I threw on the grey blazer my mum got me for Christmas last year, ran a comb through my hair, and got to the restaurant 15 minutes early, like I always do. I double-checked with the hostess to make sure everything was set. The cake I ordered was chilling in the back. The table was set, candles lit. It looked nice, thoughtful. I ordered myself a glass of red and waited. At first I wasn't worried. My family runs late. Not fashionably late, just late. Kendra once showed up an hour into her own baby shower and didn't apologize. So I scrolled through my phone, checked email, killed time. I figured they'd trickle in soon, probably laughing, maybe carrying a card or two, maybe not. I didn't care about gifts. I just wanted them there. 30 minutes went by, then 45. Still nothing. I sent a quick message in the group chat. "Hey, I'm here. Let me know if y'all are on your way." I stared at the screen waiting for those little grey dots. Nothing. The waiter came by with that "I'm sorry I have to ask" smile. "Would you like to go ahead and order?" I shook my head. "I'll give it a few more minutes." It wasn't until I got a notification from Instagram that the knot in my chest started to tighten. One of those little new posts from Kendra banners slid across the top of my phone screen. I opened it without thinking. It was a group photo at a steakhouse. Not just Kendra and Tom, not just Rachel and Zach. Everyone. Mom, Dad, Jordan, even Uncle Rick, who hadn't been invited but still managed to make the cut. They were all there, arms around each other, laughing like a stock photo. The caption, "Family dinner with the real ones, the blessed." I froze. The air in the room suddenly felt heavier, like I'd been dunked underwater. I didn't even register the clink of dishes or the hum of low conversation around me. I scrolled through the comments. Looks like so much fun missing Marcus. Where's Marcus? And then I saw it. Kendra's reply. He had his own plans tonight, I think. I sat back stunned. My plans were to be right here at this table with them. I didn't know what to feel first. Shock, maybe. Then confusion. Then that slow creeping wave of humiliation. I looked around the table. The polished silverware, the untouched wine, the extra seats. Suddenly it all felt like a stage, and I was the only actor who showed up for the scene. I didn't say anything. I didn't comment, didn't text, didn't call. I just slid my phone into my jacket pocket, tipped the waiter far more than the single glass of wine was worth, and walked out with my heart pounding and my hands cold. On the way home, it hit me. This wasn't an accident. It wasn't a scheduling issue or someone forgetting to hit send on a text. This was deliberate, coordinated. Everyone had seen the invite. Everyone had gotten the reminders. They just chose not to come. And it wasn't even the first time something like this had happened. I started remembering things I hadn't let myself process. The Christmas where they forgot to tell me dinner moved to Jordan's place. The group text I was added to halfway through the thread. The time I paid for Kendra's wedding photographer and never got so much as a thank you. All of it came rushing back like puzzle pieces I'd tried to fit into the wrong picture. Maybe I hadn't wanted to see the truth. Maybe I thought if I just kept giving, they'd eventually treat me like I belonged, like I mattered. But now I wasn't so sure. That was the night I started questioning everything. Not just the dinner, not just the Instagram post, but the whole dynamic. The years of being the reliable one, the fixer, the ATM with a smile, and what it had actually cost me. And quietly in the dark of my apartment with the half-melted birthday cake I'd brought home from the restaurant, I made a decision that would change everything. Not out of anger, out of clarity. And maybe, just maybe out of self-respect, I didn't sleep much that night. I kept checking my phone not because I was expecting an apology, but because some part of me still hoped maybe this was a mistake. That they'd realise what happened and call. That anyone would reach out and say, we messed up. But the silence just stretched, hour after hour, like they were hoping I would be the one to smooth it over, like I always did. I woke up the next morning to 3 new texts. None of them were from my parents. Kendra, hey, hope you had a good night. We went out kind of last minute, Ray's idea, lol. Let's do something soon, just us. Tom, her husband. Heard you had your own plans, hope they went well. We missed you. Rachel, didn't know you had something set up, awkward, lol. We should all grab brunch sometime soon. I didn't reply to any of them. Not because I wanted to be petty, but because every message came with its own layer of gaslighting. Heard you had your own plans. Didn't know you had something set up. I had literally sent out a calendar invite 3 weeks ago. Sent reminders, follow-ups. There was no forgetting, no last-minute miscommunication. They just chose something else, chose someone else. That stung more than I expected. It only took 48 hours for things to start shifting. Monday afternoon, I got a text from my mom. Hey, honey, I think the rent auto payment glitched this month. Can you double-check your account? I stared at the message for a long time. She didn't ask how I was, didn't mention my birthday, just skipped right to the payment like it was an overdue task in a shared calendar, like my money was a utility that failed to process. That night, I got another text, this one from my dad. Insurance company left a message, said the card on file was declined. Did you update it? Again, no hello, no how was your weekend, just the assumption that I'd fix it. I didn't reply, not to either of them. Instead, I sat in my living room with the lights off, sipping lukewarm tea and running the numbers in my head. In the past year alone, I'd covered over $6,000 in rent for my mum. Paid my dad's car insurance every month. Spent $1,200 for Kendra and Tom's anniversary party. Helped Jordan with a last-minute deposit after he wrecked his last apartment. Venmo'd Rachel when her cat needed emergency surgery, even though she's never offered to pay me back. I had receipts, literal receipts, but I'd never once thrown them in anyone's face. Because I thought family meant not keeping score. I was starting to think I was the only one who believed that. By Wednesday, I had 4 missed calls and 2 voicemails from my mom. The first one was breezy. "Hey, sweetheart, just checking in. I think something's up with the rent transfer. I'll give it a day in case it's a bank thing." The second one was more clipped. "Marcus, I don't know what's going on, but the leasing office said we're past due. I need you to call me back. This isn't funny." Still no mention of my birthday. Still no apology. Just pressure. I spent that evening replaying old memories I'd buried under. They didn't mean it. Like how 3 Christmases ago I offered to host and cover the dinner. I cooked for 10, cleaned for 6 hours, bought gifts for everyone, and somehow still got left out of the group photo because we didn't realise you'd stepped away. Or when Jordan got laid off and moved in with me for 2 weeks, stayed for 3 months, ate everything in sight, used my Netflix, never washed a single dish. When he left, he didn't say thank you, just texted me 2 days later. "Can you send my W-2 if it shows up?" I laughed at the time. Thought that's just how family is. But now it all felt different, like a bruise I hadn't noticed until someone poked it. Thursday evening, I finally got a call from Jordan. I let it go to voicemail. "Yo, man, I heard you're mad. Kendra said you felt excluded. I didn't know you had a dinner planned. We just figured it was one of your quiet birthdays. But come on, don't cut off Mum's rent over that. She's freaking out." He paused. "Anyway, hope you're okay. Just call someone or text. Don't ghost us." I played it twice. Once for the content, once to feel how little weight it carried. There was no accountability, no real concern, just a vague come on and a low-effort hope you're okay. No one was asking what I needed. They were just reacting to what I'd stopped doing. Saturday things escalated. Kendra called. I didn't answer. So she left a message and then, of course, followed it up with a text. "Marcus, this is getting ridiculous. You could have just said you felt hurt. You didn't have to punish everyone like this. Mum and Dad are scared. Jordan's stressed. And now Rachel's posting shady stuff about people who act like saints then disappear. Can we just talk?" I sat on the edge of my bed, rereading it, feeling my jaw tighten. I could have just said I was hurt. I did, not with words, but with that empty table, with that untouched birthday cake, with the silence that followed when no one came. They knew I was hurt, they just didn't care until it started affecting their comfort. And now they wanted to talk. Later that afternoon I went to the grocery store, ran into a childhood neighbour, Mrs. Patel, sweet lady, used to babysit Kendra and me when we were kids. She smiled at me in the frozen food section. "Marcus, it's been a while. How was your birthday?" I blinked. It was quiet. She frowned. "That's strange. I saw the photo Kendra posted. Everyone else was at that steak place. I figured you were out of town or something." I gave her a tight smile. "Nope, I was very in town." She looked uncomfortable. "Oh, I'm sorry. That's strange." "Yeah," I said. "It was—" She nodded, patted my arm, and gave me a sad smile. "You deserve better, you know." And something about hearing it from someone who had nothing to gain or lose, who just saw it for what it was, made me feel less crazy. When I got home, I sat at my kitchen table and wrote a list in my notebook, not of what they owed me, not of what I'd paid for, but of the times I'd shown up. The time I drove Mom to 3 doctor appointments in 1 week. The year I paid off Jordan's credit card after he missed too many payments. The day I stood next to Kendra at her baby shower while her friends toasted the real support system, none of whom had paid a dime toward the venue. I didn't do those things for praise. I did them because I loved them. But love without respect starts to feel a lot like exploitation. That night I turned off autopay. I didn't post a message. I didn't write a note. I didn't make a speech. I just finally gave myself permission to stop. Not out of revenge, but out of necessity. Because if there's one thing I've learned, you can't make people value your presence by setting yourself on fire to keep them warm. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do for yourself is to walk away from the table they keep pretending you were never invited to in the first place. It had been exactly 2 weeks since I stopped paying for everything. No rent transfers, no insurance payments, no quiet deposits into Jordan's account when he overdrafted again, no more being the invisible net they assumed would always catch them. At first the silence was awkward, then it got loud. Kendra sent a long email, half apology, half accusation, blaming me for destabilizing the family just to make a point. Mum's voicemails shifted from chipper concern to borderline panic. Dad was still holding out with short texts like, "Update me when you fix this." And then there was Jordan. He kept trying to play peacemaker, sending texts like, "Just come by and talk. You don't have to say anything deep. Just eat like old times." As if we ever had old times where I wasn't footing the bill. Still I held the line. I didn't respond. I kept quiet. I focused on work. I went for walks. I saw friends who didn't ask me to pay for things who showed up and said, "Hey, how are you doing?" It was peaceful. Lonely, yes, but peaceful. Until the message came. It was a Thursday morning. I was mid-meeting when I got a string of texts from a friend of mine, Sasha. She's known me and Kendra since high school. Still in the loop. Still follows us both. "Hey Marcus, did you know your sister's throwing a family reunion cookout?" She sent out an invite on Facebook. It says, "Honouring the glue that holds this family together. I thought that meant you, but your name isn't listed." Did you know about this? I didn't. I opened Facebook and found the post right away. Kendra had created a private event, but apparently forgot to make it private enough. The event banner was a collage of smiling family photos. Mom, Dad, Jordan, Kendra's kids, Rachel and Zach, everyone. Even a couple aunts and cousins I hadn't seen since I was 15. There was a caption underneath, "Because family means showing up, always. Join us for a celebration of love, resilience, and the people who never stop giving. RSVP by Saturday." People who never stop giving. I read that line 4 times, each word burning a little deeper. My name was nowhere on the list. No mention, no photo, no tag. I wasn't invited. Again. I paced my apartment phone still in hand, heart thudding in my chest like a slow drum. I could have handled being left out once, maybe even twice, but this was something else. This was public, this was performative. They were throwing a party on my birthday weekend, using the exact kind of messaging I'd lived by for 10 years. Showing up, giving family. They were using my values while actively erasing me from the picture. And the worst part, the venue they listed the park with the covered pavilion, I recognized the reservation code in the small print. It was made under my account, the one I used to reserve it 2 years ago for Dad's retirement party, and apparently no one had ever updated the login details. They were using my old account, which meant one thing. They'd use my credit card on file. I checked my banking app. There it was. $287.45 charged 3 days ago by the city's parks department. They hadn't just excluded me. They used my money to do it. I stood in my living room frozen like someone had pressed pause on my whole life. It wasn't even the money that did it. It was the message. They wanted the support, the setup, the legacy of generosity, but not the man who provided it. That's when the heartbreak broke clean into anger. I called Kendra. She picked up on the 3rd ring like she hadn't just cut me out of a family tribute. "Hey," she said, too cheerful. "Long time. How have you been? Did you seriously just book a family event using my card?" There was a pause, a long one. "Oh, that must have been a mix-up. I used the same login as last time, figured it was still active. You didn't update your info." "Kendra," I said, struggling to keep my voice even, "you planned an entire reunion without inviting me. Didn't mention me once, used my old reservation account, and didn't think to check which card was connected." "It's not a big deal," she said quickly. "I'll Venmo you." "It's not about the money." I could hear her sigh, annoyed. "Marcus, you've been so distant. We didn't know where your head was at. You ghosted everyone." "You mean I stopped paying for everything?" "Well, yeah, that too." I closed my eyes, hand trembling. "You keep throwing around words like family and showing up. But I've been showing up for years, quietly, consistently, financially, and all I ever got in return was a seat in the shadows." "That's not true." "Really?" I said, voice rising. "Then why am I not in the pictures? Why wasn't I invited? Why is your tribute to the people who give built on the back of my credit card while pretending I don't exist?" Silence. Then finally she snapped. "You're being dramatic, Marcus. You walked away. What did you expect us to do? Wait around for you to come back?" "I expected basic respect," I said. "I expected that if you were going to cut me out, you'd at least do it without charging me for the privilege." Another silence, a longer one. "I'll cancel it," she muttered. "Don't bother," I said. "I already did." She gasped. "You what?" I called Parks and Rec, told them the charge was unauthorized. They're issuing a refund. Reservation's gone. You'll need to make a new one with your own card this time. You're punishing the whole family over a misunderstanding? No, I'm drawing a line. You don't get to use my generosity as your foundation while pretending I was never part of it. She hung up without another word. I spent the rest of that evening shaking. Not because I was scared, but because it finally felt like I was tearing down a house I'd built with my own hands after realizing I'd never been allowed inside. I could still hear her voice in my head. You walked away. As if I hadn't spent years begging to be seen. As if I hadn't given until there was nothing left but quiet resentment. But no more. The next day, I posted something on my own social media for the first time in weeks. A photo of my old reservation receipt and the refunded charge with a caption, "Sometimes the cost of being the dependable one is realizing you were just dependable, not valued. Lesson learned." No tags, no names, but they saw it. By noon I had 10 missed calls, 3 voicemails, and an unexpected knock on my door. It was my dad. He looked tired, smaller somehow. I didn't say anything as I opened the door. He sighed. "Kendra told me what happened." I folded my arms. "Of course she did. She said you overreacted." "Did I?" He didn't answer. Instead, he stepped back, rubbed the back of his neck. "I think we all forgot who made it possible for the rest of us to float." My jaw tightened. "You didn't forget," I said. "You just stopped noticing." He nodded once. "You're right." There was no long apology, no big gesture. But it was the first honest thing he'd said in months. That night, I sat at my desk and opened a new document. I titled it My Next Chapter. Not dramatic, not flashy. Just a quiet commitment to myself. The first line read, "No more showing up for people who only notice when you stop." And beneath that, I started planning my own trip, my own dinner, my own life. No guests required. Just me and maybe someday the kind of people who don't need a reminder to remember I exist. After I cancelled the reservation and posted the refund receipt, it didn't take long for the backlash to roll in. Kendra texted first. "Wow, you really torched everything over one dinner. Good luck repairing this." Then came Mom. "You've made your point, Marcus, but this is your family. I don't know how we're supposed to move on if you keep making it about money." Dad, ever the minimalist, simply texted, "This won't help anyone." And just like that, the roles reversed. Suddenly I was the problem, not the forgotten son, not the ATM in a blazer, but the one who blew it all up. Not a word about the exclusion, not a word about the stolen reservation or the months of silence I sat through, just finger-pointing. The next Saturday, I got an invitation in the mail. Handwritten, Kendra's handwriting, a new venue listed, a backyard BBQ this time, a sticky note inside. "If you still care, you'll show up. Don't make this a pride thing." I stared at it for a long time before tossing it in the trash. A week later they came to me. All of them. They showed up at my door, Mom, Dad, Kendra, even Jordan. It was like some sitcom intervention minus the warmth. I opened the door and stepped out onto the porch, arms crossed. Mum was the first to speak. "Marcus, we're here because this has gone too far. We've always leaned on you, yes. But that doesn't mean we don't love you." "You've got a funny way of showing it," I said. Kendra jumped in, arms folded. "You're punishing all of us because you felt left out." "No," I cut in. "I was left out. You excluded me, then used my money to throw a party celebrating the people who always show up. You wanted to erase me but keep the benefits of having me around." Dad sighed. "We thought you'd be fine. You're always fine." "I'm not," I said, my voice quieter but firmer. "And that's the problem. You took my silence for stability. But I was drowning in being the one who holds it all together while no one ever bothers to ask how I'm doing." No one spoke. Jordan looked at the ground. Kendra looked annoyed. Mom wiped her eyes. Dad looked older than I remembered. I exhaled slowly. I'm done being useful instead of loved. If you want me in your lives, show up when there's nothing to take. Then I stepped back and shut the door. I didn't cry. I didn't throw things. I didn't pace the house waiting for someone to call. I sat down, brewed some tea, put on music that made my apartment feel like mine again. And for the first time in months, I let myself breathe. I felt empty, but not broken. More like a shelf that had been overstuffed for years and finally cleared. Part of me wondered if I did the right thing, if I'd been too harsh. But another part deeper and steadier knew I'd finally said what needed to be said. Over the next few days, I leaned on people who chose to be in my life. Friends who didn't need reminders, co-workers who respected my time. Even Sasha dropped off a bottle of wine with a sticky note that just said, "About damn time." I started planning a weekend trip by myself. Just me and some fresh air somewhere without service. No group chats, no requests, no guilt. And as I packed, I kept thinking, they may never get it, they may never apologize. But for once, that wasn't my burden to carry. For once, I chose me. And I'm not turning back. 3 months later, I stood in my new apartment, smaller, quieter, but mine. No voices arguing in the background, no buzzing group chats asking for last-minute bailouts. Just sunlight pooling through the windows, the scent of fresh coffee, and the soft hum of peace I didn't realize I'd been missing. I'd moved across town, not far, but far enough, a clean slate. The first morning I woke up here, I made breakfast just for myself. Scrambled eggs, toast coffee with oat milk. I played the jazz playlist I used to love, but always turned off when Kendra said it put her to sleep. Now I let it fill the room. I wasn't lonely, I was free. I started doing the things I used to shelve, signed up for a photography class, took weekend trips to places that didn't care if I showed up with matching outfits or made everyone's dinner reservations. I called friends who made time for me without needing a financial nudge. My life slowed down, got simpler, but every moment felt like it belonged to me. One Sunday afternoon, I sat in a cafe with Sasha flipping through photos from a short trip I took to Oregon waterfalls, misty trees, a lake that looked like glass. "You look good," she said, "lighter." "I feel it," I said, smiling, tired but in a good way. My family didn't completely disappear. There were efforts, small ones. Jordan texted occasionally, sometimes just memes, sometimes check-ins. We even got coffee once. He didn't ask for money, didn't mention the past. Just sat across from me like a brother who was starting to understand what being a brother meant. Mom called on my birthday. She didn't bring up rent. She didn't ask for anything. She just said, "I miss you." I told her I miss who we used to be before everything felt like a transaction. She didn't know what to say to that, but she said she was trying. And that was enough for now. Kendra's still silent. I saw a post from her a few weeks ago. Family isn't who shares your blood, it's who shares your burdens. The irony wasn't lost on me, but I didn't engage, I didn't need to, because I wasn't carrying that burden anymore. The biggest change wasn't in them, it was in me. I learned to say no without apologizing. I learned to spot the difference between being loved and being used. And most of all, I learned that you can set a boundary without building a wall. That walking away isn't the same as burning a bridge, it's just choosing a different path. For so long I believed that loyalty meant self-sacrifice, that love was only proven through what you gave, but now I know better. Love without respect isn't love. Support without acknowledgement isn't kindness. And silence doesn't mean peace, it just means you're the only one listening. I still keep an empty chair at my dinner table, not out of hope, but as a reminder that I don't need to fill every seat to feel whole. Sometimes one is enough, because now finally I'm sitting at a table I built for myself, and it's exactly where I'm meant to be. Story 2. Thanksgiving in Minnesota is always cold, but that year the frost seemed to seep into my bones. As I sipped my coffee, staring out at the snow-covered garden, I braced myself for the annual family gathering at my mother's house in Eden Prairie. My husband David was away on a crucial business trip, leaving me to face the day alone. Upon arrival, my mother Martha immediately questioned David's absence, her disapproval evident. "Work over family again," she remarked, setting the tone for the evening. The house was filled with relatives, including my sister Linda, her husband John, and their 5-year-old son Tommy. Dinner was a grand affair as always. The table was adorned with fine china and silver candlesticks, the turkey perfectly roasted. As we sat down, my mother began carving the turkey, her voice cheerful as she said, Thanks to your miscarriage, our family line remains pure. Laughter erupted around the table, and Linda added, "One real grandchild is enough, don't you think?" I stood up, silently placing my fork down, and left the room. The pain of my miscarriage, which had occurred 2 years prior, was still fresh. The callousness of their remarks was unbearable. I found solace by the window, watching the snow fall gently outside. John approached me, his expression troubled. "Amy, I need your help. I suspect Linda has been seeing someone else. I want to get a DNA test for Tommy." His words confirmed my suspicions about Linda's closeness to the new assistant pastor, Adam Foster. Back home, I began investigating. As a senior accountant, I had access to the church's financial records. I discovered irregularities, monthly transfers from the church's charitable funds to a specific account. Further digging revealed Linda's credit card transactions at a local hotel coinciding with Adam's schedule. Confronting Linda, she confessed to the affair and admitted that Tommy might not be John's son. She also revealed that our mother had known all along and had helped cover it up to protect the family's reputation. The weight of these revelations was immense. I had to decide whether to expose the truth, knowing it would shatter our family's facade, or continue living a lie. The days that followed Thanksgiving felt heavy, like the snow clouds blanketing the Minnesota sky. I moved through each hour in silence, replaying the dinner, Linda's confession, and John's desperate plea in my mind. The warmth that once clung to memories of family gatherings had gone numb. David returned from his trip 2 days later. He listened as I told him everything: Linda's affair, Tommy's uncertain parentage, the money trail I had uncovered, and our mother's role in it all. He didn't interrupt. He just placed his hand over mine, grounding me. "What are you going to do?" he finally asked. "I don't know yet," I whispered. "But the truth is a river. Even when it's buried under ice, it still flows." That week John called. The DNA test results had arrived. "It's not mine," he said quietly. I closed my eyes. The truth didn't shock me. It confirmed what I already knew. But the finality of it, the sound of it coming from John's mouth, still hurt. "What are you going to do?" I asked him. "I need to tell Linda I want a divorce," he said. "But I don't want to hurt Tommy. I still see him as my son." "You're a good man," I said. John sighed. "That's the hard part. Still loving someone who isn't yours by blood, but is yours by everything else." Later that night, I went back into the church financials. Every number I traced told a story. Church donations diverted into hotel stays, gift shop receipts tagged under youth ministry development, anonymous fund transfers carefully broken down in amounts just low enough to avoid suspicion. But to my trained eye, the story unfolded clearly. What caught me off guard was my mother's name appearing on several transactions, small at first. Catering orders she claimed were for church events, but matched the dates of private parties she hosted. A custom pearl necklace paid through a charity fund. I knew what I was looking at: embezzlement. I sat back in my chair. My mother, who had preached purity and virtue and family honour, had built her entire social identity on a crumbling altar. And then came the letter. A single page typed unsigned slipped into the church office mailbox. A summary of the fraud, specific names, dates, connections. The document ended with, "Ask the Anderson family what they've done in God's name." The church elders convened an emergency meeting. The assistant pastor was dismissed. Whispers started to crawl through Eden Prairie like frost through cracks in a window pane. The fallout hit fast. Mother collapsed at a Sunday service. A stroke, the doctors said. Not fatal, but serious. She was rushed to the hospital and admitted to intensive care. Linda called me in a panic. "They're saying someone mailed an accusation about Adam and Mom's finances. Do you think it was—" "No," I said flatly, "it wasn't me." I didn't need to send the letter. The truth had a life of its own now. The family had built its house on winter-thin ice, and now the weight of secrets had broken it. At the hospital, the atmosphere was thick with silence. My mother lay pale and quiet in her bed. When I stepped in, her eyes fluttered open. "You found out?" she rasped. "Yes." Her gaze shifted away. "I did it for us. For the name. For the church. You think you understand, but reputation is everything here." "No," I said quietly. "Reputation is a shadow. It follows you, but it's not you. You chose a shadow over truth." Tears welled in her eyes, but I saw no regret, only fear. Outside her room, Linda and John waited. He held an envelope, the divorce papers. Tommy wasn't there. "She doesn't want to believe any of it," Linda said softly. "She still says it's all a misunderstanding, that it'll blow over." John handed her the envelope. "Some things don't blow over. They burn down and clear the land." She didn't cry. She just folded the paper and nodded. We stood in the hospital corridor, the three of us, the daughter who'd miscarried the sister who'd deceived, and the man who'd been betrayed, each holding a part of a broken family story. Outside, the wind was picking up. The first real snowstorm of winter was arriving, and with it the silence of truth settling in every corner of our lives. I turned to Linda. "You need to face what you've done." She looked away. "And what about Mom?" "She's already facing it." That night I sat with David by the fireplace. The flames danced, but didn't chase away the chill inside me. I realized then this wasn't just a family scandal. This was a reckoning. We had all been actors in a play Mother had written, and now the curtain had fallen. I thought of the garden outside. Underneath the snow, the ground waited, quiet, still, ready for spring. Winter in Minnesota is long, long enough to watch the wind sculpt new shapes in the snowbanks, long enough to reflect on what remains after everything's stripped away. Our family used to be about appearances, perfect dinners, pressed tablecloths, quiet expectations. Now it was just facts and fallout. After the hospital stay, Mother was moved to a private nursing facility in Bloomington. Clean, quiet, expensive. Linda objected at first, said it was cruel to put her there. I told her no one was putting anyone anywhere. This was care. The kind Mom needed and the kind we could afford barely. But I also said something else. This isn't punishment, it's mercy. Real life has finally caught up. David and I sold our townhouse and found a small home in a new development west of Minnetonka. A fresh start. 1 hour from Eden Prairie, but it felt 1,000 miles away. No legacy to protect, no eyes watching us in church pews or aisles at the grocery store. It was David's idea to start the adoption process. We had talked about it before, the miscarriage, then buried the idea under grief and guilt. Now it felt possible again. We weren't replacing a child we lost, we were making space for one who needed a home. The paperwork came in slow waves, background checks, home inspections, letters of intent. But each form we filled out, each box we ticked, felt like planting something in frozen ground. One evening, as I was sifting through another round of forms, my phone buzzed. "Linda." "I need to see you," she said. "It won't take long." She arrived the next morning. No makeup, thin coat, hair unbrushed. She looked like someone who hadn't just lost a marriage, but a mirror, like she no longer knew who she was. "I need money," she said. I closed the door gently behind her. "Linda, I wouldn't ask if I wasn't desperate," she whispered. "John has full custody. I barely see Tommy. I've got nothing left." I poured her a glass of water. "You made choices," I said carefully. "So did I. I won't undo yours." She looked at me, eyes rimmed with red. "Do you hate me?" "No," I said, "but I can't carry you anymore." She nodded once. It wasn't acceptance, it was surrender. After she left, I stood at the kitchen window watching snow drift across the backyard. It came down gently, as if the sky itself were tired. I wasn't angry, I wasn't sad, just hollow in a clean kind of way, like the land after a storm. A week later, John brought Tommy over. The boy ran through the hallway with small footsteps that echoed like hope. John and I sat in the kitchen over coffee. I told him the truth in pieces, he said. He knows I'm not his biological dad. He doesn't understand everything yet. But he knows I chose him. "You're doing the right thing," I said. John smiled a quiet smile. Funny how the ones who didn't choose honesty end up alone, At church, things shifted quickly. Adam was gone. The elders appointed a new assistant pastor, someone older with a calm voice and no scandal in his past. The congregation thinned. Whispers lasted a few weeks, then the next drama moved in. Life, even in small towns, is built on forgetting. Mom, however, couldn't forget. When I visited her, she was thinner. Her speech had improved slightly, but her eyes had grown tired. One afternoon she looked at me and said I spent my life guarding a name. But it wasn't the name that mattered. No, I said gently. It was the people behind it. She nodded slowly. I thought purity meant perfection. But maybe it just means being honest with what's broken. We sat in silence for a while. She never apologized directly, but she didn't need to. Sometimes the biggest apology is sitting with the truth and letting it breathe. By spring, David and I received word that we were matched with a baby girl. She'd been born 3 weeks early in a different city to a mother who couldn't keep her. When we met her, she was barely 6 pounds wrapped in a hospital blanket too big for her arms. Her name was Elise. We decided to keep it. When we brought her home, everything changed. The house felt alive. Her cries echoed through our quiet rooms. Her warmth filled the spaces left by everything we'd lost. There were moments I caught David watching her while she slept, eyes full of something I hadn't seen in him since before the miscarriage. Awe, love, home. That summer we planted a tree in the backyard, a serviceberry sapling native to the land. Hardy, adaptable, slow-growing, but strong. We told ourselves Elise would watch it grow year by year and maybe one day swing from its branches. I sent a photo of Elise to Mom. No caption, just her sleeping in my arms beneath the tree. A week later, a card came back, handwritten a little shaky. She's beautiful. Thank you for letting me see what love really looks like. Love, I realized, isn't a straight line. It bends, it breaks, but it finds its way back. Eden Prairie was no longer home, but it was still part of me. A reminder that even in the coldest places, things grow again. And that's what I held on to. Not the shame, not the pain, but the simple truth that family isn't made of bloodlines or public image. It's made of choices. Of who shows up even after the storm. And we, David, Elise and I, were building a family that chose each other every day. Not perfect, but real. And that finally was enough. Story 3. I wish I had a more poetic reason for how I met Ben. Truth is, the garbage disposal in my old apartment jammed, and he was the friend of a friend who knew how to fix it. That's how it started. I was 22, he was 26, charming in that. I swear I'm emotionally mature, because I own tools kind of way. We traded Instagrams. He liked my cat posts. I liked that he knew how to spell your. One thing led to another, and 3 years later we had a shared Netflix account, a monthly meal plan rotation and matching camping gear. Ben wasn't perfect, but he remembered my birthday, laughed at my bad impressions, and texted goodnight without fail. Which is more than I can say for my ex before him, who once asked if emotional labour was a real job. I thought I'd finally found something solid, predictable, safe. Then came Tuesday. Lunch break. I'm halfway through reheating a sad office burrito when my best friend Lena texts me a TikTok link with the words, "Call me right now," in all caps. Lena is the opposite of dramatic. The girl once described a car accident as a bit of a fender bender when she literally totaled her Honda. So I clicked. Ben was at his usual Monday night dive bar with his friends, the kind of place where the jukebox only plays classic rock and the wings are suspiciously cheap. The camera pans to him, arm around his friend, max 6 drinks in at least. Someone behind the camera asks, "So how would you rate your girlfriend?" I didn't even realize I was holding my breath until he answered. "Hazel, probably the ugliest girl I've ever dated, like a 5 on a really good day." I sat there frozen as the bar crowd exploded in drunken cackles. He went on, "But she can cook and she doesn't nag when I hang with the boys. Low maintenance is rare these days, so I keep her around." And then the final gut punch. Not like she's on TikTok anyway, thinking of upgrading soon. She's got too much baggage. The video ended with 17,000 views. I didn't cry, I didn't yell, I didn't even blink, just felt something cold settle behind my ribs like frost creeping in. That night, he'd been at my place. We made pasta. We talked about moving in when my lease ends. He kissed my forehead. He said, "Love you, babe." 12 hours later, I was a low-maintenance 5 he was planning to trade in. I texted Lena back, "On my way after work, don't say anything." Then I shut off all notifications and went into autopilot for the rest of my shift. I didn't go home that night. I drove to Target, grabbed a cheap duffel through in essentials, phone charger, toothbrush, 2 t-shirts, 1 hoodie, and checked out like I was shopping for a weekend trip, not fleeing a relationship. Pulled into Lena's lot at 6:17 p.m, sat there engine off, replaying the video over and over until my battery hit 2%. She didn't ask questions, just handed me a glass of cheap wine, pointed to the couch and said, "We figure it out tomorrow." I wasn't going to give Ben the closure he could turn into a story. No tears, no confrontation, no dramatic speech to make him feel like the misunderstood villain. I was just gone. We spent that night making a list, block him on everything, change my passwords, he knew most of them, call out of work for the week, tell my mom I'm safe, nothing more. By the next morning, his texts started, "Hey, what do you want for dinner? You okay? Are you coming over tonight? Then where the hell are you?" Still no mention of the video. By Thursday, the TikTok had vanished. Probably deleted when he realized it was making the rounds. Too late. Lena had screen recorded it. Our friends had seen it. People I hadn't talked to since college were sending me, "Are you okay?" messages. I felt like a trending topic, not a person. He called me 26 times that weekend. From his number, his mom's, Max's, even the landline at the bar. I didn't pick up once. Then came the note. "Tape to my apartment door, Hazel, please call me. We need to talk." Still not a word about why. It was like he expected me to forget. The following Monday, I needed to stop by my apartment to grab a package. Figured 8 a.m. was safe. Ben always left for work early. Wrong. He was sitting on the welcome mat like a bad movie cliche. Same hoodie from his Instagram story, bloodshot eyes, Metallica shirt from 3 days ago. When he saw me, he crumpled, literally fell to his knees. "Hazel," he whispered, "please, I didn't mean it. I was drunk. I didn't even know it was recording. You were 6 beers in, not possessed. I messed up. I'm sorry. Please don't leave like this. Don't let this be the end." I stepped around him without a word, grabbed my mail, walked to my car. He followed me sobbing the whole way, begging. I drove off with the sound of his voice getting smaller in the rear view. That brings us to now. It's been 8 days since I saw that video. 8 days since I realized the man I planned to build a life with never really respected me. 8 days of wondering how many times I'd laughed at his jokes while he thought of me as a placeholder. Part of me still wants to scream, part of me misses him, but mostly I just want my peace back. After that morning outside my apartment, I didn't sleep for 2 nights straight. I kept replaying it in my head, Ben on the ground, crying like a man who just realized the fire he set had burned down his own house. The problem was, the house was me. And now that it was in ashes, he wanted to act like it was some minor kitchen mishap, not a 3-alarm blaze. I didn't go back to Lena's right away. I drove around for a while, listened to music I hadn't heard in years, landed in a drive-through line at a taco place we used to hit up on Fridays. Except now, every corner of this city had his fingerprints on it. Back at Lena's, I just stared at the ceiling all night. The next day, Lena got home from her shift, dropped her keys in the dish like usual, looked at me and said, "You haven't moved." I hadn't. She handed me a lime White Claw, the only flavour worth drinking, and asked, "Can I ask something?" I nodded. "Were there signs before this? Things you brushed off because you loved him?" That question cracked something open. Not in a loud, dramatic way, but more like the slow creak of a door I'd kept nailed shut. It started small. Ben would make jokes about my weight. Subtle things like how my favourite jeans were a little tight in a cute way, or asking if I was sure I needed seconds. When I dyed my hair lighter last summer, he said, "Oh, that's bold. You sure you like it?" I pretended I did. Even though deep down I was already wondering if I'd made a mistake. He never hit me, never screamed, never cheated, at least not that I knew of. but he chipped away at me, bit by bit, until I was always second-guessing myself. I once got promoted at work, and instead of being happy, he said, "Just make sure you don't burn out. You get emotional when you're stressed." I laughed at the time, told myself he was looking out for me. But now I see it, that quiet discouragement masked as concern. He'd disappear for hours with no explanation, and if I asked where he'd been, I was being clingy. He wanted me soft, easy, quiet. By the end of that conversation, I was sitting on Lena's floor with a notepad in my lap, listing all the things I'd let slide. The time he called my voice a little loud for restaurants. The way he talked about other women, always the same type, thin, doe-eyed, zero personality. How he once told me not to wear red lipstick because it was too much. Somewhere along the line, I stopped dressing for myself, stopped speaking up when something bothered me. I became smaller so he could feel bigger. No more. That night, someone rang Lena's doorbell. It was 9:12 p.m. We both froze. I peeked out the peephole. Ben, standing there with a bouquet of sad-looking gas station flowers. I counted 7 blooms, all wilted, like he couldn't even be bothered to check if they looked alive. Lena opened the door a crack. "She's not here, Ben," she said firmly. "I just need 5 minutes." "You've had 3 years," she replied, then gently closed the door. When we looked down, we saw an envelope he'd slid under it, his handwriting on the front, Hazel. It was 8 pages, front and back, filled with tear stains and all the usual lines. I don't know why I said those things. My friends were hyping me up. "I never meant to hurt you. I'm afraid you'll leave because you're too good for me. And the one that got under my skin, I know you still love me." He was right, I did love him, but I didn't trust him anymore, and that was worse. Friday morning I got a call from my older brother Jesse. Apparently Ben had showed up at his apartment at 7 a.m, unannounced. Jesse told him if he came by again, he'd call the cops. "Are you safe?" Jesse asked me. I told him yes. That wasn't a lie, but it wasn't entirely true either. I felt physically safe, but emotionally it felt like I was constantly walking through fog. I couldn't see more than a few feet ahead. That's when I realized something had to change. I couldn't keep avoiding the inevitable. So I drafted a message. "Ben, please stop contacting me, my friends and my family. I need space. I'll reach out if I ever want to talk. Do not message me again." I stared at it for an hour before pressing send. Then I turned off my phone and buried it under a couch pillow. When I turned it back on hours later, there were 6 messages from him. 1 saying he understood. 1 saying he'd wait as long as it took. Then 3 more asking when we could meet for coffee. And finally, "Please don't do this. I can't lose you." I blocked the number. The weekend came, and for the first time in 2 weeks I felt peace. Lena and I ordered Thai food. We painted our nails. We watched all 3 John Wick movies back to back. Something about Keanu's face just calmed me. Sunday night I scrolled through Instagram and saw something I wasn't prepared for. Ben had posted a video, a public apology. It was 4 minutes long, him in his car, red-eyed and sniffling, talking about how sorry he was, how he'd made the biggest mistake of his life, how he hoped the most beautiful soul he'd ever known could find it in her heart to forgive him. He tagged me. The comments were a mess. Some people called him brave. Others tore him apart for being performative. I didn't comment. I didn't even watch the whole thing. But the part I did see, it didn't feel real. It felt like damage control, like someone playing the role of sad ex-boyfriend for likes and sympathy. Monday morning, I packed up my duffel bag and decided it was time to go back to my apartment. Lena had been amazing, but I needed to reclaim my space, my routine, my life. When I walked in, I was hit with the smell of week-old takeout and something else paper, lots of it. Post-it notes everywhere. On the mirror, "I miss your laugh." On the fridge, "Our first kiss was here." On the bed, "I can't sleep without you." My stomach turned. Ben had a spare key. I'd forgotten. He'd been inside while I was gone. I tore every note down and ripped them to shreds. Then I called my landlord and had the locks changed by noon. That night I didn't sleep much. Every sound made me jump. Every car passing by made me check the window. I hated that he still had that kind of power over me. But I also knew something had shifted. I wasn't scared of losing him anymore. I was scared of what I might have lost in myself if I'd stayed. The next morning, someone knocked on my door. It was Max, Ben's friend, the one in the video, the one who laughed. He looked awkward, clutching a coffee cup and avoiding eye contact. "Hey," he said, "I know I'm the last person you want to see, but I needed to say something." I didn't invite him in, just leaned on the doorframe and waited. I shouldn't have laughed in that video. I thought it was a dumb joke. I didn't know he was serious. I raised an eyebrow. "You thought him calling me ugly was a joke?" He looked ashamed. "We were drunk. We were all trying to outbro each other, but it wasn't okay, and you didn't deserve that." Then he added, "I've never seen him this messed up before. He's not eating. He's not sleeping. He got written up at work." I shrugged. "Not my problem." He nodded slowly. "Just thought you should know." I closed the door without saying anything else. And I felt good about it. That night, I finally took down all the photos of Ben and me. Every trip, every birthday, every smiling selfie into a shoebox. I didn't burn them. I'm not that dramatic, but I couldn't keep them on my wall like they were still part of my story. I needed space, not just physical, but emotional. I needed to relearn what it felt like to be by myself without feeling lonely. I made dinner just for me. I watched a movie Ben never wanted to watch. I wore the pajamas he hated. And for the first time in what felt like forever, I slept through the night. The day after I put Ben's photos in a box, I took myself out for breakfast. Just me, a quiet diner, and an omelette big enough to make me question my life choices. I sat in a booth near the window with a cup of too hot coffee and no distractions. No notifications, no texts, no weight on my shoulders, except the scarf I forgot was wrapped too tight. Across from me, an older couple was sharing pancakes. The woman wiped syrup off the man's chin while he made a face like a toddler. She laughed and he kissed the back of her hand. And for some reason I didn't feel jealous. I didn't feel bitter. I just felt still. I realized I hadn't been still in weeks. Not really. Even during the quiet moments, there was always noise in my chest. Always that lingering thought, what if I'd done something differently? What if I'd said something sooner? What if I was just better? But that morning, something cracked open in a good way, like the sun finally made it through after weeks of fog. Later that afternoon, I ran into a neighbour in the laundry room. "Hey," she said cautiously, "you doing okay? My niece showed me that TikTok. I'm really sorry." I blinked. I hadn't even thought about how far it had spread. "I'm fine," I said, then corrected myself. "I'm getting there." She nodded like she understood. Men like that. They don't realize how strong we get when we stop shrinking. That stuck with me. When I got back upstairs, I opened my closet and pulled out a dress I hadn't worn in over a year. Ben once told me it looked a little much for a casual dinner. I wore it to dinner that night, alone. And it wasn't too much, it was just enough. The week that followed was quiet. No knocks on the door, no texts from random numbers, no Instagram DMs. Until Thursday. I was in the cereal aisle at the grocery store when I saw a woman approaching. She was maybe mid-20s, wearing a black puffer jacket and no makeup. Her eyes looked unsure. "Hazel," she asked, "you're from the TikTok?" I gave her a tight nod. "Yeah, that's me." She looked embarrassed. I commented something mean when it first went viral. Said you sounded boring. I raised my eyebrows. "Okay. I just wanted to say I'm sorry. I didn't know the context. After the apology video, I felt awful. I deleted my comment. I wasn't sure what to say. I didn't owe her grace, but I gave her a small smile anyway. Thanks, I guess. Just maybe remember there's always more to the story." She nodded and walked away, and I stood there holding a box of cinnamon cereal, wondering how my personal humiliation had become someone else's digital wake-up call. That moment was a strange turning point. People knew my name not because of who I was, but because of something someone else did to me. I wasn't just Hazel. I was the girl from the TikTok, and that realization, it made me angry. Not sad, not crushed, angry. The kind of anger that has direction. The kind that makes you cut your hair, repaint your walls, and finally submit that grad school application you've been sitting on since 2022. So I did. I walked into a salon the next day, pointed to a photo on Pinterest and said, "Do this." The stylist raised her eyebrows. 7 inches, you sure? Positive. Each snip felt like dropping weight, like cutting free the version of me that kept waiting for someone to love her right. When I looked in the mirror afterward, I barely recognized myself in the best way. I took a selfie when I got home, posted it with the caption, "New month, new roots." Within 2 hours it had over 100 likes, a few from people I hadn't heard from in years, 2 from Ben's friends, and 1 message from someone I didn't expect. Xavier. Xavier was the one holding the camera in that video. The one who laughed when Ben called me low maintenance. The one who shouted savage in the background like it was a middle school roast battle. His message just said, "I owe you an apology. You probably don't want to hear it, but if you do, let me know. I'll talk. No excuses." I didn't respond right away. Instead, I let it sit in my inbox like a forgotten bill. Later that night, I showed Lena. She read it, made a face, and said I'd ignore him. But I also kind of want to know what he has to say. So I messaged him back, "If you're serious, meet me at the Starbucks near Maple and 3rd. Tomorrow at 2, I'm bringing backup." His reply was immediate. "Understood, thank you." Lena couldn't come, so my brother Jesse offered. He sat at a nearby table, earbuds in, pretending to scroll while watching like a hawk. Xavier showed up looking nervous, unshaven and sleep-deprived. He ordered a black coffee and sat down across from me, fidgeting with the sleeve. "I won't waste your time," he said. "I found something in our group chat from weeks before the video." He pulled out his phone and slid it across the table. I hesitated, then looked. It was a thread between Ben, Xavier and 3 other guys from their friend group. "Ben, need a way to get Hazel to break up with me. Don't want to look like the bad guy. Max, just start being a dick until she dumps you. Franklin posts something dumb online. She hates TikTok, right? Ben, exactly. I'll act like a douche on camera. She'll see it flip out and I can play victim. Clean exit." My hands were shaking. Xavier looked ashamed. "I didn't see this until recently. I didn't know the whole thing was planned." "Why tell me now?" "Because I've been watching Ben lie to everyone, pretending he's heartbroken, telling people you were controlling. Meanwhile, he's still messaging some girl named Ashley, said he was almost free." I felt something twist in my stomach. Not pain, not heartbreak. Relief. Because now I had proof that I wasn't crazy. That it wasn't some one-off drunk mistake. It was premeditated, cruel, strategic. And I'd walked away without giving him what he wanted. That night, I texted Ben for the first time in over a month. "We need to talk. Tomorrow, 1 p.m. Java Junction. Don't be late." His response came instantly. "Hazel, I'll be there. Thank you. I love you." Love. He didn't even respect me. Still, I needed this for closure. The next day, I dressed with intention. Not to impress, not to provoke, just to feel like myself. Ben arrived 2 minutes early, freshly shaven, new shirt. That same half smile he always used when he thought he could charm his way out of trouble. He opened his mouth to start talking. I stopped him with a raised hand and set my phone on the table. The screen showed the group chat. His face went pale. "You planned it," I said. "All of it. You wanted out and thought humiliating me would be easier than honesty." He tried to stammer something, but I didn't let him. "You didn't make a mistake. You made a choice, repeatedly, and now I'm making mine." I stood up. "We're done. Don't contact me again. Don't post about me. Don't cry about me. I'm not your story to twist anymore." I walked out without waiting for a response. It was the most peace I'd felt since this began. 2 days later, I got a message from a woman named Ashley. "Hi, I'm so sorry to reach out. I just found out Ben's been lying to me too. He said you were his crazy ex who faked a pregnancy scare to manipulate him. I only saw the video this week. I had no idea." We talked for almost 2 hours. Turns out he told her he was single, said I'd been emotionally unstable and clingy, said he felt trapped. Meanwhile, he was the one planning emotional landmines to blow the relationship up and play victim. I told her she didn't owe me anything, but I appreciated the honesty. We exchanged numbers, said we might grab a drink sometime. Not to trauma bond, just to acknowledge that sometimes when the same person lies to 2 people, you need a reminder that it wasn't your fault. I've learned a lot in the weeks since. I've learned that love without respect is just manipulation in a prettier box. I've learned that the people who say you're overreacting are usually the ones doing the damage. I've learned that silence can be louder than screaming and way more powerful. I've learned that disappearing without a dramatic scene is sometimes the loudest goodbye. I've learned that you can miss someone and still know they were wrong for you. And most of all, I've learned that I was never too much. He was just never enough. Today I submitted my grad school deposit. I signed a lease for a new apartment across town. I deleted the TikTok app from my phone, not because I'm afraid to see something, but because I no longer need to live in the shadow of it. I am not the girl from the video, I'm Hazel, and I'm just getting started.